time for another reading wrap-up. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lauren and this is Lauren's library. My library anyway. Also part of Lauren's Life Evolution. If you're new here, welcome. I do this kind of thing for fun. So if you would like to subscribe, please feel free to do so, but there is absolutely no obligation to do so. So I'm going to do my September reading wrap-up. I read a total of 9 books this past month. So let's just get started and go through them all. So of course with September starts fall season and spooky season, so I definitely wanted to get into more of those type of books, and I definitely went through a few classics this month, the first of which being Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And this was actually nice to read, and believe it or not, if you've actually never read the actual story, the Frankenstein's monster is different than who he's made out to be in popular culture. So I definitely would recommend reading this if you haven't before, just to get to the OG background of Dr. Victor Frankenstein and also Frankenstein's monster. It's pretty good. It's pretty interesting. I gave it 4 stars. So that was the first book I read this month. The second book I read this month was The Marvelous Land of Oz by L. Frank Baum. This is actually the second installment of the Wizard of Oz series. There's a total of 15 books in the series, in case you didn't know that. I didn't know that, so I'm going to slowly go through them. I got a whole box set, so this is number 2. This is definitely a little whimsical. Of course, The Land of Oz, very interesting. It's about a boy that's running away from a witch that he has lived with for as long as he can remember, since he was an infant. And I'm just going to say that the ending was very interesting, and I don't know how I feel about it, because I just see a child being very confused and messed up. But if you're intrigued about that, definitely pick this up as part of the series and give it a whirl. But I gave it 3 stars, maybe 2.75, but yeah, we'll see how the rest goes. The next book I read in September was also the OG Dracula by Bram Stoker. This was definitely a nice OG read, especially if you're really into the vampire books. You get to see where it all started, how it all came from. This was also just a good classic. I definitely gave it 4 stars. Just really good, interesting to see how it all started, the original, and it's a little bit of a chunker, but definitely worth it in my opinion. So, Dracula by oh my goodness, Bram Stoker. Okay. Now, getting into like the creepy stuff and everything, I also read this book called Dark Archives, and it's by Megan Rosenblum. Basically, she's a librarian, and this book is the history behind anthropodermic books, or books that are bound in human skin. And even though this is a nonfiction book, for me, I gave it 5 stars just because I think this is a good book to have if you're a bibliophile. And this was also very interesting. I'm also in the medical field. I'm a nurse. This was also good in the history of medicine point of view too. There were a lot of books that were mentioned in this book too that I also placed on my TBR to read, just about the history of studying anatomy and how the history of surgery and all that kind of stuff. But this was definitely very interesting, and if you're a bibliophile, I highly recommend this just for the history of bookbinding, and also if you're in the medical field, I definitely recommend this just for the history of academically learning anatomy and surgery and all that kind of stuff. I really love this book. This is definitely staying in my personal library. The next one is another classic. This is my Easton Press edition. This is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is another good, this is actually a short read, not very long at all, but definitely another good classic to read. I gave it 4 stars. Obviously, you could probably find many editions of this book anywhere, but this just happened to be my copy that I have obtained. But yeah, definitely a good classic to read. Highly recommend. And of course, the cult classic, I don't want to say classic because it's brand new. It just came out last year, actually, but everybody's talking about it. If you haven't heard it, what rock are you living under? And that is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. From what I've heard, this is definitely a you either love it or hate it kind of thing. This, to me, is one of those, like, Hallmark romance kind of movie, cozy little town kind of things. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cute. It had a little bit of spice at the end. Not too much, so I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I can't remember if I said that. I think I did say that. So if I repeated myself, my apologies. But I did really like this book. And so after that, I also read the other one, the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. So, the cover can be kind of deceiving because it's fallish on the cover, but the story mostly takes place in the summer months with mentions of fall in the end. Also, this is a little bit more spicy than the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, with spice sprinkled throughout. Definitely a cute, little love story. Again, I liked it. I gave it like 3.75, 4 stars. If you like that one, you'll probably like this one. And I can't wait for the Christmas installment to come out, I believe later this month, if I'm not mistaken. I don't actually remember exactly, but either way, when it comes out, I'm definitely getting it. So I got that. 2 audiobooks that I read that I don't have physical copies of. One is the Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. This is a true account of a haunting that happened in a house in Amityville, New York in the early 1970s. So basically, this person got all the personal accounts of everybody that was involved, not only the family that lived in that house, but also the townspeople and the clergymen and everybody else that was involved in what was going on, recorded testimonies and all that, and put it all together and put it in a book. Not gonna lie, it was kind of creepy. So if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, like actual hauntings, I definitely be wary if you don't like to dabble into that kind of thing. But it was pretty creepy, but yet at the same time interesting, if that makes any sense. So I think at one time when I was a teenager, my mom had a paperback copy of the book and I tried to read it and it just got too creepy for me. So I put it down and I didn't, I found it free on Audible. So I decided to listen to it. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Another audiobook that I read, and this will be the last book of the month, it was called The Anatomy Murders by Lisa Rossner. And it was one of the books that was mentioned in the Dark Archives book I talked about earlier. And it's an account of the Burke and Hare murders that happened in the early 1820s in Edinburgh, in Europe. And basically these two men murdered victims to sell their corpses to anatomists, which would then use them for anatomy school dissection in physicians schooling. Okay, so basically the book was about all about the murder victims, their histories and backgrounds and all that kind of thing, and also the trials and deaths of Burke and Hare themselves, and also about the main anatomists that they sold their murder victims to. So it's definitely very interesting as far as like the medical history perspective. I enjoyed it because that's just kind of the thing that I've been interested in for a very long time. At one point I wanted to become a forensic pathologist. So I do have a lot of books about the history of medicine, the history of learning anatomy, the history of surgery, and all that kind of thing. So I enjoyed it. I think it's actually a hard physical book to find because it's an older book, but it was free on Audible. So if you want to check that out, head over to Audible. And that's it for my September reading wrap-up. Thank you so much for coming and joining me, and I'll see you next time when I see you next time. Thanks. Bye.